Happy New Year! It's a time of new beginnings where everyone has a chance to start fresh. I'm your host, Leah.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Speaking of beginnings, today's stew will be about the quirky origins of everyday things. So grab your spoon and pull up a chair.
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Have you ever heard the phrase, "Do not despise the day of small beginnings"? You ever heard that before?
No, I've never heard that.
No.
I've heard it from time to time to acknowledge that all things have to begin somewhere. This is actually a saying from the Old Testament of the Bible in Zechariah chapter 4, verse 10, pertaining to the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, which had been destroyed by the Babylonians. The complete quote is, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand." So that's what it means. Don't despise things. Everything has to begin small.
Well, he really loves me because I begin a lot of things. I don't necessarily see them through.
Oh, well, that's a whole other
Starting is fairly
question.
easy.
Another related saying is, "Mighty oaks from little acorns grow."
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. According to a website called davidantrobus.com, this is a 14th century English proverb that has many relevant applications for our time. You always tell that to people when they're kids when they're starting a savings account. You know, I think I've seen that quote in banks before. You know, about mighty oaks from little acorns grow.
Yeah, little flyers and all that stuff.
So anyway, that's great that things coming from small beginnings. That's certainly inspirational and all. But we know what our listeners love. What about weird things? Where do they come from? Where'd you come from? Well, never mind. I won't go there.
Birds and the bees.
Well, we have you covered today as we explore people and origins that had weird beginnings, or at least beginnings that were very different from their current condition. To get us started, let's take a look at the business world.
Ooh.
Yeah. From cracked.com. Why not?
That's awesome.
I like that. I like that website.
That's a good site.
We find an article titled, "The Surprisingly Strange Origins of 22 Famous Companies." Now, we won't touch on all of these, but there are certainly several that deserve our attention. And we're going to start with one that you might have in your wallet right now. Yes, it's a little bit of green thing, and it's plastic. American Express. The green card, right? According to their website, American Express was founded in 1850 by, now listen to these names and see if they aren't a little bit familiar to you. Henry Wells, William Fargo, and John Butterfield.
Well, I don't know about Butterfield, but Wells and Fargo.
I think I've seen a spinoff.
Right. And so what was the purpose of this venture? Well, it was to ship packages around the eastern part of the United States. That's right. American Express was begun by Wells, Fargo, and Butterfield as a package delivery service. Butterfield actually later was a stagecoach, ran a stagecoach line.
Okay.
And, of course, we know about Wells Fargo. Quoting from their website, "We began as a freight forwarding company in 1850, earning a reputation as a company people could trust while transporting some of their most valuable possessions. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, the company introduced traveler's checks and other financial services that help support customers' everyday lives." Okay, I don't know if y'all remember, back in the 70s, they had a series of commercials, and do you remember what their slogan was? American Express.
Don't leave home without us?
That's right. Don't leave home without us. And there was an old actor named Carl Malden, and he was their spokesman, and they would always present these scenarios. You're in a foreign country. Your wallet gets stolen. Your purse is missing. What will you do? What will you do? Okay, it was pretty dramatic.
So what will you do?
Well, you depend on your American Express traveler's checks, and you're in good shape, according to the commercial. Yeah. In the 1950s, they introduced the famous green card, offering customers a new and convenient way to pay. Today, American Express claims to be the world's largest global payment network. It's quite a difference from how they started, starting off shipping packages around, and now they're a giant financial network.
Were they the first credit card, do you think? Or
They were among the first.
among the
Yeah,
first? Okay.
Among the first, because this next one also had one around the same time. I'm thinking that there was one called Diners Club that would maybe
I
was
remember
the
that.
first one, and but then I think the other ones kind of may have come along immediately afterward. Now, kind of along the same lines as American Express is Bank of America. But you might be surprised to know that Bank of America started in San Francisco in 1904 as the Bank of Italy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Did they forget where they were?
I guess I didn't realize that Italian immigrants had made it to the Wild West, but Amedeo Giannini, 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 was the child of Italian immigrants. He was born in San Jose, California in 1870. His father developed a prosperous produce business in San Francisco, and Amadeus worked in the business until he was 31. After the death of his father-in-law, Amadeus took over management of the family's finances, which included many banking interests. In 1904, with 5 partners, he began the Bank of Italy. According to Britannica.com, from the beginning, he was financially unorthodox. He made loans to small farmers and businessmen, and he actually solicited customers, which went against the banking tradition at the time. Yeah, he was actually advertising for loans. That was a considered.
No, they should come to you.
Right, yeah. That's the way the old thinking was. He was innovative. The bank's loans and deposits quintupled within about a year. And in 1906, when the earthquake and fire struck San Francisco, Giannini was able to rescue the bank's gold and currency and resume banking operations much sooner than most other banks in the city.
Wow.
In 1909, Giannini began buying other banks in California and turning them into branches of the Bank of Italy. By 1918, the Bank of Italy became the first statewide banking system in the United States. You work for a bank, Phil. You'd be fascinated by these stories, I'm sure. In 1927, he began acquiring a second system of banks, which he merged with the Bank of Italy, and he renamed it the Bank of America National Trust and Savings Association. This banking system helped to finance many Hollywood film projects and also much of California's agricultural industry.
Wow.
Similar to American Express, in 1958, they issued the first bank credit card that was called the Bank AmeriCard and is now called Visa.
Okay.
Yeah. Today, Bank of America is headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, so they've come a long way from being the Bank of Italy in San Francisco by Italian immigrants to one of the largest financial institutions in the world today.
Right.
Now, I think I'm going to do the next few like our inspiration, Mike Rowe, who would tell you the whole story without telling you who he was talking about at first.
Okay.
See if you can figure out what's going on here. In 1940, a fellow named Marty Bromley created a company called Standard Games, which made coin-operated slot machines and jukeboxes for U.S. military bases in Hawaii. The company did well throughout the war years and afterwards, as Hawaii had numerous military outposts. But in 1952, the U.S. government outlawed slot machines. Oh, a bunch of killjoys, when you know. Outlawed slot machines. Well, they outlawed them on American military bases. I should have finished that sentence. Yeah. So don't stop until you get to the period, Steve. Well, anyway, rather than crying his 3 cherries, Bromley recognized a new market for the one-armed bandits, Japan. The island nation had just emerged from American occupation after World War II, and to Bromley it appeared to be fertile ground for the gaming industry.
I bet it was.
Thus, he moved Standard Games to Japan and renamed the company Sega.
Oh.
In the 1960s, the company branched out into developing arcade games as well.
Yep.
Sega created a popular game called Periscope in 1965 that was a hit at Japanese arcades. In the 1980s, the company entered the competitive video game market when, in 1988, they developed the Sega Genesis. Did you either have the Sega Genesis?
Yeah. Yep.
No, I didn't, but I was a girl. I mean, not to say that girls don't video game, but we were happy with our Atari.
I didn't realize that was mandatory, but okay.
Yeah. I had the Atari, the Sega Genesis, the Nintendo. So we were good.
I didn't have all.
There was the first Nintendo, and then the Sega Genesis was an upgrade. So that forced Nintendo to develop the Super Nintendo.
Right. Go one up. Yeah.
Right. The
constantly.
one up.
Still to this day.
In 1990, Sega introduced a character named Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yep.
By 2001, they abandoned gaming systems, and today they focus primarily on software development, from slot machines and jukeboxes to high tech.
Well, and I think that's a mark of a company to stick around. They have to be flexible.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They really do. That's kind of like the difference between Blockbuster and
Yeah.
Netflix.
Absolutely.
You know, Netflix
It'll
was
never
able.
catch on.
Yes.
That's right. Netflix was able to stay with the times, whereas there's no Blockbusters now.
I'm always amazed that, the Sears had home shopping sewn up for 100 years with the Sears catalog. I can remember when I was a kid that Sears catalog was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I guess they got too complacent and didn't look ahead because now they're struggling to survive. Now, here's another one. See if I'm going to not give you the name of these people and see if you can figure out the company. Back in 1927, a newlywed couple named J.W. and Alice opened up an A&W root beer stand in Washington, D.C. In addition to root beer floats, the young couple also installed a grill and began offering good food and good service at a fair price. They renamed their business Hot Shop Restaurant. Oh, yeah, and they spelled shop S-H-O-P-P-E, kind of fancy-like,
Yeah.
The following year, they added 2 more Hot Shop locations, including the first drive-through on the East Coast. In 1937, they began offering boxed lunches to air passengers flying out of Washington, D.C. That was a whole new service.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a different one.
By 1953, Hot Shop Incorporated went public and sold out all of their shares of stock within the first 2 hours of trading. Now, you might be thinking, who is this young couple, and why haven't I heard of their dynamic business? Well, when I tell you their last name, you will recognize it. The young couple that built an enormous enterprise are none other than J.W. and Alice Marriott.
Okay.
Interesting.
Marriott. That's
Wow.
correct. The giant Marriott Corporation began as an A&W root beer stand.
So when they were an A&W root beer stand, they were just franchise owners,
Right.
basically. Okay.
Right.
So
And then
Wow.
From there,
But
they
They branched out into hospitality.
right.
They did.
Quoting from their website, Marriott made a historic shift into the hotel business in 1957. The world's first motor hotel opened in Arlington, Virginia, under the management of J.W. and Alice's son, Bill. Over the next 25 years, Marriott became a diverse global enterprise, and Bill Marriott became a visionary CEO whose leadership transformed the hospitality industry. In 1969, the company opened their first international hotel in Acapulco, Mexico. And in 1983, they opened their first Courtyard by Marriott with more home-like accommodations for business travelers. Have you ever stayed in a Courtyard by Marriott?
I have.
Yes.
I have, and
Very
I
nice.
enjoy them.
They are.
That's
It's
right.
really nice to have more of a home feel than when you're traveling on the road. JW died in 1985 and Alice in the year 2000, but the company continues to be operated by their children and grandchildren. They have over 8,000 locations worldwide and employ over 120,000 people. And it all started with an A&W root beer stand.
That's impressive.
Now,
That's awesome.
that's something that we don't have here in Texas is A&W root beer stands, and I loved them.
Right.
Not anymore.
I've seen them in the northern states, yeah.
Yeah.
There was one.
Oh,
And
really?
There was one in the Woodlands a long time ago, but now it's a Taco Bell.
Oh, all right. So when you think of vending machines, what comes to mind?
Quarters,
Sodas.
nickels, dimes.
And what did you say?
Sodas and chips.
So-
yeah.
sodas and chips.
Yeah.
Basically, the main things that they sell right now are sodas and chips, just
Yeah,
snacks.
Yeah, exactly.
In the old days, cigarettes. you
Yeah.
know.
Well, here's the thing. So I put down there, my parents bowled a lot when I was a
Oh,
kid.
yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in bowling alleys, and I remember the cigarette machines.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I also remember gumball machines,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, as a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But vending machines for hot coffee, hot chocolate, hot
Yeah, you
soup.
name it. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if y'all remember this, but one restaurant here in the Greater Cut and Shoot area,
Right.
the Kettle. Do you remember that? They had this.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think I do,
Actually,
yeah.
no, it wasn't the Kettle. It was the
Yeah.
Village Inn. They had this like carousel of pies.
Oh,
And
that
you
there were
could-
vending machines.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
And
was
you
a
could
vending.
put it in and pick the number, and it would
That's-
spin it around.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was
Yep, I do remember that
wonderful. I don't ever remember if I ever got a piece of pie out of there, but as a kid, like just standing, I mean, it was better than watching TV.
Yeah,
you
you're
know?
just like,
Right.
Look at it coming around. It's
Just
pretty.
watching spin.
Right.
Well, how far back do you think the vending machine goes? As far as when
long
they
as
were
there have been
invented?
coins, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd say
30s.
130 years, maybe.
130. Well, here's
1890s.
according to an article at thoughtco.com, that's thoughtco.com, the first recorded example of a vending machine came from Greek mathematician Hero of Alexandria,
Whoa.
who
Wait, what?
he invented a device that dispensed holy water inside Egyptian temples.
Wow.
He created it in order to keep the holy water from being stolen. Which, I mean,
Nice.
I'm like, if people need to steal it,
It's
maybe
not
they
really
need
holy,
it,
I guess.
you know?
They might have thought it had mystical powers or something.
And there were machines found in English taverns around 1615 that would dispense tobacco. The first coin-operated machines emerged in London during the early 1800s near
Right.
railway stations and post offices.
Right.
They contained things like notepaper, envelopes, and postcards.
Right. Stamps, even. I bet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
The first vending machines to be found in America were installed on the elevated subway platforms in New York in 1888 and sold Tutti Frutti gum.
Tutti Frutti gum.
The gumball machine with its candy-coated gumballs arrived a bit later in 1907. Soon, anything and everything that could possibly be sold remotely was put into
A
a
vending
vending
machine.
machine.
Wow.
Like get
Yeah,
cigars, stamps, beverages, cigarettes. And here's a list of some of the strangest things to be sold in vending machines, and you tell me where you think they're located. Fish bait.
Oh, that's right here in the cut and shoot area. I bet.
It's only in Texas.
It's a Texas thing.
Right.
How about a vending machine for books?
Okay, yeah, that could be
Public library.
In a library, maybe. Yeah.
Well, actually, schools.
Oh, in school.
There's
okay.
vending machines created for schools where kids are rewarded with tokens.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
to go get books
The
out.
token
to go
economy.
get
I
books.
got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you imagine? I mean, I loved to read as a kid, but I raised 4 kids,
They
and
can't read.
none of them. Well, they can read now, but but they were not voracious readers.
Yes,
and
Sam.
I'm not.
Yes, Sam. I'm talking to you.
And can you imagine them going, "Great,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Did he
boy.
just-
great"?
He
Look,
called
I
us
got a
out.
book.
Can I?
Can I burn it?
How about cupcakes? A vending machine for cupcakes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Can you choose the topping?
Yeah, I think you can.
That'd have been
Probably.
cool.
I think
Yeah.
you can, and it's called.
Well,
I think
you
the
want us to
brand
pick
name.
Where that was?
Yeah, where was it? I think the brand name is called Sprinkles Cupcakes.
San
So I think you
Francisco.
can even choose your sprinkles.
Ooh.
What did you say?
San Francisco.
No, not quite. Beverly Hills. There's
Oh,
one in
okay.
Beverly Hills and one in Chicago.
Interesting.
Interesting,
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a baguette
Oh,
vending machine.
That's got to be
No,
Paris. I would
that is
think, yeah.
Paris.
Right.
Burger vending machine in Moscow. Draft beer vending machine in Japan. We're going to talk about Japan's vending machines here in a minute because they
They
go
get out-
overboard.
No. Really?
How about where do you think a pecan pie?
Oh,
vending
well, that's
machine?
got to be
Georgia.
somewhere in the South, you know.
That's Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, is it
That's
Texas?
State free.
And
Keep it here, keep
this
it
one,
here.
I bet you can't figure out because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Lobster. Like a
It's gotta be like
lobster
Boston?
vending machine.
Yeah,
Boston,
You would
maybe?
think it would be up in the Northeast, but it's
Yeah.
in Las Vegas. And I'm not sure it's
well,
live.
imagine you think you're playing a slot and you get a lobster thrown
Yeah.
out at you.
Pow.
Had a few too
Can
many
you
to
imagine?
drink.
Yeah, you pull it out to this.
What can I change this in for?
Oh man. Okay, and here's the thing: these are starting to become. They're popping up in the states that are legalizing it. Marijuana vending machines.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
And
Okay.
they make good money apparently.
evidently.
There's also in Singapore a vending machine for automobiles.
That's got to be a big
Well, I
machine.
thought
I
we
would
called
think.
It's totally automated, and you use a credit card. You just have to have a really high limit on your credit card.
Yeah, I guess.
In late 2016, Autobahn Motors in Singapore opened a luxury car vending machine offering Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And yeah, they clearly need a hefty limits on their credit cards.
I'm thinking in Singapore it doesn't have that many roads to begin with. I think, it's pretty crowded, that seems like.
Well, Japan has really embraced the vending machine and probably has the widest selection of items.
Wait. Isn't Carvana our vending machine in the States?
I don't know.
Well, they advertise it like it is, but I don't know
they
if
do
it really
have
is.
they do have the car. It literally looks like a giant car vending machine with the
Yeah.
whole car.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
So it has they build like a 7-story little glass enclosure that's 4-sided, and there's a car on every floor on each
Oh,
side.
wow.
And there's an elevator in the middle that will pull the car down and bring it to you. So you literally order your car, and
where is that located?
all over the United States.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, we
But
need to
now
go.
now they do delivery.
Okay,
Now,
so that's an easy road trip.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to go see
Sounds
one.
good.
Yeah.
Buy a car.
Go see that.
who has the highest limit?
And by the way, Carvana, if you're looking for a podcast to sponsor,
That's
we'd like to
right.
talk with you.
But talking about Japan, they have vending machines for everything. So they have one that's for amamori, which are Japanese amulets, commonly sold at Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples.
Okay.
They have vending machines for T-shirts,
Okay.
all manner of hot foods like rice, French fries, hot dogs, hamburgers, and noodles. And then not just junk food, there's fruit machines where you can get an apple, or there's banana vending machines where you can get just one banana. You can choose. You can get a whole bunch, or you can get just one.
Yeah, if you just want one,
I just
you
need
don't
a
want the
hit
whole
right
bunch,
now.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
whether you need to take it home for the family for the week, or if you need,
Yeah.
you just really are hankering for a banana. And flowers are the same. You can get a single bloom or an entire bouquet in a vase.
That's kind of a nice deal.
In a
though.
yeah,
vase.
in a vase. And this was interesting. Dashi soup stock.
Okay.
It's interesting because it's like, I saw the picture of the vending machine. It looks like it's got jars of brown liquid, but in each one of them is a fish, like a whole fish.
I think it.
And
yeah.
apparently dashi soup stock is the basis of a lot of their recipes.
Foods.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like running out of sugar here, Americans are all about the sugar, but
Right.
they keep that stock in stock. And they also, this one makes a whole lot of sense, an umbrella vending machine.
Well, that does make sense, and not just for the rain, because this one not Japan, but Korea. I noticed people using umbrellas on sunny days there.
Right. That makes sense.
And it makes a lot of sense. I don't know why we do more of that here in the greater cut and shoot area, but
Trees.
one thing you didn't mention that made me think of, vending machines is you're seeing pictures, I think in the 50s and 60s in New York, they had something called the automat where you could go in and
Yes,
they
it
would
was
have meals put in little slots and you could
Yeah.
buy them and open the door and get them out. And kinda
Uh-huh.
get
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
inexpensive
mentioned
meal.
in this article. And I got my information from thoughtco.com by a journalist named Mary Bellis, and BuzzFeed.com, and the creativeadventurer.com. And I'm just glad that whatever you get from a vending machine, they've upgraded to where they take credit cards. Because
That's
do you
nice, it
remember
Oh, the slot money.
putting in the dollar and having it spit back out?
And we'll
And
take
There's
it, yeah.
only a crease on the left
Yes,
corner.
yes.
Are you kidding? Just
So,
eat it already.
I'm glad they've gotten better than that.
Yeah, we had when I was teaching, we had a certain teacher who was really good about bumping the machine with her hip to get a stuck bag of chips unstuck.
Yeah.
People would always call her for her special talent.
Oh, that's awesome.
Can you come hit Chip the video machine again?
Well, if you're like me and allergic to any and all kinds of exercise, I break out in sweat, then you've probably been on a treadmill and at some point considered it to be cruel torture. Well, you're not wrong. The first treadmill, it didn't look like today's treadmill. It was a wooden cylinder with a handrail that was a lot like what we would see as a hamster wheel,
Hamster
right?
wheel, yeah.
It was created in 1818 by English engineer William Cubitt. It was designed to be used in prison when Cubitt noticed some prisoners spending their days in idleness, and he set out to correct that problem.
Yeah, we can give you something to do. You
And
got
he was offended by their idleness. I'm sure he was a popular guy.
You're going to walk a mile.
And soon prisons all over England were installing treadmills. By the Prison Act of 1865, every male prisoner over 16 sentenced to hard labor had to spend at least 3 months of his sentence in labor of the first class, which consisted primarily of the treadmill.
wow.
Some of the
Wow.
more enterprising
Did they
prisons.
create their own electricity?
Well,
Oh,
here's
no.
that's
Okay.
that's what I was going to say. That some of the more enterprising ones hooked it up to
Generator,
machines
yeah.
like to grind grain, pump water,
Oh,
or
yeah.
power
That makes
ventilators
sense.
in mines.
Absolutely.
And with some prisoners expected to walk the treadmill 6 hours of the day,
That's a lot.
it was
Well-
eventually seen as cruel punishment and fell out of use about the turn of the century, about 1900.
And what comes
So-
to my mind is the prisoners would all be in much better shape than the guards. Who would
I
be
know,
putting
right?
on weight.
And now to think, some people pay a gym membership just to
To
be
go walk
able
on
to
a treadmill.
Yeah, well, guilty. I pay one.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
All right, for our oddity today, I recently ran across an interesting article. At least I thought it was interesting. We'll find out if you think it is. It was on triviagenius.com titled 49 Strange Facts About 49 Vice Presidents. It's a good article with very interesting facts about the 48 men and one woman who have held the office of vice president. Now, I'm not going to share all of them, but here are some of the more unusual ones. Aaron Burr. Okay, now you probably know who Aaron Burr is.
They sang about him a lot in a more recent play.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But mostly because of the famous duel in which he shot and killed Alexander Hamilton. He had been Thomas Jefferson's vice president, but when Jefferson ran for re-election in 1804, he dropped Burr from the ticket. Now, this was the year after the Louisiana Purchase. So, in retaliation, Burr recruited some soldiers and ventured west into the newly acquired Louisiana Territory and tried to start a secession movement.
He's gonna take his own toys and go play.
Right.
We're gonna go play somewhere else.
Thomas Jefferson was furious, and he issued a warrant, an arrest warrant for Burr. And he was arrested. He was brought to trial in Virginia for treason, but conflicting versions of what he had actually been up to led to his acquittal. They couldn't quite pin it on him. Burr was sort of slippery that way. Now, you might not have heard of this person, but you have probably heard of something that is named for him. His name is Elbridge Gerry, Gerry. He was the vice president to James Madison. But before he had been vice president, he was the governor of Massachusetts, where he became well known for redesigning voting districts for his political gain.
Oh, yeah, I know what he's famous for then.
Now, one of the state senate districts that he redrew was so absurd looking that it appeared like a salamander. His political opponents dubbed it a gerrymander, and that phrase has stuck with us for the last 200 years now to describe an odd-shaped political district.
Gerrymandering. I used to get that term mixed up with filibuster.
Yeah.
I used to think that people that talked on and on and on was gerrymandering, but no, that's not it.
Now, John C. Calhoun, you might have heard of that name. He was the only vice president to serve two different presidents in two different parties.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. He was John Quincy Adams' vice president in the Democratic Republic Party. However, this party split during Adams' presidency. Calhoun switched to the new Democratic Party, which is still the Democratic Party today, and he served as Andrew Jackson's vice president during his first term. So there's your gee whiz about John C. Calhoun. Now, here we go. William R. King. He was elected vice president to Franklin Pierce in 1852, but unfortunately he suffered from tuberculosis. Immediately after the election, he traveled to Cuba in an attempt to regain his health. In fact, he asked for and received permission to take the oath of office while still in Cuba. The oath was administered by a member of the embassy staff. He's the only vice president to take the oath outside of the United States. Mm-hmm. A few days later, he returned home to his home state of Alabama, but his health did not improve, and he died shortly afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we talk about tuberculosis a lot.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
It was.
Yeah.
Now, you've heard of this one, Chester A. Arthur. He was the vice president to James Garfield and then became president when Garfield was assassinated. This would have been about 1881. But many, many years before he was involved in politics, he was a lawyer. Now, about 100 years before Rosa Parks, you remember Rosa Parks,
mm-hmm.
The famous
right.
on the Alabama bus. Well, Chester Arthur defended a black woman named Elizabeth Jennings, who had refused to leave the white section of a Brooklyn, New York streetcar. This was in 1854. Arthur won the case, which officially ended segregation on New York City's streetcars. So that took another 100 years to get it the rest of the country, but that was Chester A. Arthur. All right, here's another one. Vice President James S. Sherman. He was vice president to William Howard Taft. In 1912, Sherman was suffering from a kidney disease that made it hard for him to campaign for re-election. His doctor advised him not to do any active campaigning. Quote, "You may know all about medicine," Sherman reportedly responded, "but you don't know anything about politics." So the vice president then gave a 30-minute speech and then collapsed.
Maybe you do.
2 days later, he was bedridden, and then he died before the election.
Oh, wow.
Wow, man.
And Taft lost that election as well. And finally, Charles Dawes, D-A-W-E-S. You might not have heard of him, but I bet you might have heard something that he created. He was vice president for Calvin Coolidge from 1925 to 1929. He's the only vice president so far to have written a hit song.
Oh.
Yeah. A self-taught pianist, Dawes wrote a tune called Melody in A Major in 1911. Ring a bell?
No.
No? Okay,
No.
well, later on, somebody added lyrics to that tune, and then the name was changed to It's All in the Game. In 1958, a version of the song by Tommy Edwards rose to number 1 on the Billboard chart.
Oh, wow.
Every tear has to fall.
I
but
think
it's
so.
all in the game.
I
That was
think
too
so.
low. The song has since been covered by Isaac Hayes, Barry Manilow, and Elton John, among many others. So there's
Okay.
some vice presidential trivia for you.
Well, now, do you know where the term bug came from when it refers to a bug in the machine or a computer bug? Phil, do you know?
Don't know.
Mr. IT?
No, I've actually never researched
Oh, really?
where
Okay,
the
so it's a-
term came from. We just use it.
That's right. You
the
just
time.
use it all the
Slacker.
time. Well,
Slacker.
it's a pretty known story that most people have heard, that in 1945, a malfunction of the computer, the Harvard Mark II, was traced to an actual moth trapped in
the
Oh.
in a relay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
The insect was taped into the logbook, and Grace Hopper, a pioneer of computer programming, wrote underneath it, "First actual case of bug being found," thus coining the term bug as a glitch or malfunction. And that logbook with the moth taped inside is on display at the Smithsonian Museum. So that's
wow.
the story that
Oh,
everybody
nice.
hears about a bug. And that actually happened, however.
Well, wait,
However,
there's more?
There's more.
There's
That's
another
not
story.
That's not the first case of the word bug being used in that context. Inventors and engineers have been talking about bugs for more than a century before the moth in the relay incident. Even Thomas
first of all,
Edison.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
I love that phrase, the moth in the relay incident.
Right.
Let's
moth
enjoy
in
that
the
one
relay.
for a minute.
But Thomas Edison even used the word, given the fact that he failed a whole lot more than he.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't like Edison, but I'm not putting him down for that. He kept.
Yeah.
He used the word bug,
But
a
he
lot
used the-
'cause
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it took a lot of light bulbs to get to where he was.
That's true.
But if you trace the etymology of the word bug, you'll find out that it goes way back to an old term for a monster and pops up in the words bugaboo and bugbear.
I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
bugaboo before,
Mhm.
yeah. Like
So Grace
Big
Hopper and the
bugaboo.
other computer programmers she was working with that day in 1945 did manage to be the first to bring the old term of bug in the machine into the electronic age, though.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
well, you
Computer
know,
bug.
Leah's husband is in the air conditioning business, and I one time had my air conditioning wasn't working many years ago, and the guy came out, and I had ants
Mm-hmm.
that were blocking the relay. He took a little
And
air
contact.
compressor, blew them out, and I paid him. He said, "Yeah, I'll make a lot of dollars blowing ants out of the relay."
It's
Actually, were
interesting that ants like electricity.
bugs. Yeah, they do.
Really,
They're attracted to
they're
it.
attracted to it. But he has found all manner of dead animals inside air conditioning
Imagine
units.
so.
A lot of snakes.
Ooh, yeah,
Yep.
never mind. Well, now this next one is really pretty strange. Two different rival companies started by two brothers who initially made supplies for the Nazis. Any idea where we're going here?
No.
From a website called fabricbrands.com, and fabric is with a K, FABRIKBRANDS.com, we learned the strange story of Rudolf and Adolf Dassler, Dassler, who were both born in Germany around the turn of the 20th century. In the years following World War I, the brothers worked together in their mother's laundry room to develop a new kind of athletic shoe. They had some success, and they called their fledgling company Gebrüder Dassler, or Dassler Brothers. And they eventually they shortened the name to Geda, G-E-D-A. Athletes tended to like their shoes, as during the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games, Gaeta shoe-wearing competitors accounted for 7 gold medals as well as 5 silver and bronze.
Wow.
Gaeta shoes likely would have had astronomical growth had it not been for World War II. During the war, Gaeta manufactured boots for the German army, and they also made an anti-tank weapon. No, not the infamous Goliath doodlebug that we mentioned in one of our favorite episodes of Submarines in War Machines, which was very entertaining.
Yeah, isn't that the doodlebug? Isn't that the one that had the extension cord?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it had to be plugged in. Okay.
Yeah, a 2,000-foot extension cord for power. Yeah. That didn't work out. Didn't think that through anyway. No, they had a different one, the Dassler brothers. But unfortunately, Rudolph was drafted into the army. However, Adolf was allowed to stay home and run the factory. I wonder if it had anything to do with his name. Well, anyway.
Ooh.
This didn't set well with Rudolph, as his brother was raking in the Deutschmarks while he was risking his life out on the front lines. In fact, Rudolph was actually captured by the Allies and spent some time in a detention camp before he was released. The relationship between the two brothers began to deteriorate along this time, but no one is exactly sure why. There is a rumor of a liaison between Adolf's wife and Rudolph.
Oh.
Yes.
It is known that the two wives couldn't stand each other, which didn't help matters at all. Rudolph even accused Adolf of enabling his capture and detention in order to get him out of the business.
Oh, wow.
After World War II, the relationship between the two brothers was completely broken. They couldn't even stay in the same room together. When the Dassler brothers were separating, essentially every person in the small town of Herzogenrock, Germany, Herzogenrock, was employed by them at the time. Everybody in the town was employed by them.
Wow.
Negotiations were held between the two brothers to split earnings, equipment, and employees. Both brothers still wanted to continue their pursuit in the sporting shoe industry. In 1948, Rudolph began a new company called Rudus, utilizing the first 3 letters of his first name and the first 3 letters of his last name. The following year, Adolf began his company utilizing his nickname Addy and the first 3 letters of his last name, thus forming the Adidas Company.
Oh.
Rudolph felt that was too close to his name, so he changed his company name to Puma and took the iconic image of the Puma cat for its logo and branding.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Started by brothers that couldn't stand each other.
Right.
Wow.
Quoting from Fabric Brand's article, unfortunately, even separating into 2 separate companies didn't eliminate the rift between the two brothers. The Dassler brothers continued to stay at each other's throats, now bitter rivals in the business world as well as in their personal lives. Neither company is now controlled by the descendants of the Dassler brothers. Adolf and Rudolph both passed away, and Puma is now owned primarily by the French luxury goods maker PPR, while Adidas belongs to a number of small shareholders. Interestingly, though, both of the companies have continued to maintain their headquarters within the small town of, Herzogenrock. Yeah. Herzogenrock.
That's an interesting
Herzogenrock. Yeah, they've both got the headquarters. Both companies are still there in that small town.
I had no idea that they were German companies.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
Adidas and
I thought they were
Puma
American
both.
companies.
Yeah. Well, now I love this next one. It's especially dear to my heart.
See, okay, I came across this and I gave it to you because I knew you loved this.
I had seen it when I was on my travels this past summer. If I were to say the names Agnetha, Bjorn, Benny, and Annefrid, would you know who I was referring to?
I know a few people who would just immediately know what this is.
I wouldn't.
I would not.
I
would not have guessed this myself, but I know a few people who would have figured who know this specifically.
Right. Well, fans of the iconic Swedish pop group from the 1970s know very well that I'm referring to ABBA, whose name comes from the first letters of the names of the 4 performers. And I have to tell you that on my recent trip to Europe, we spent a couple of days in Stockholm, and we had a great time one morning touring the ABBA Museum, which their slogan is "Walk in, dance out." So it was fun.
And did you?
I did. Yeah. I actually I have a video of me dancing. Well, they have this thing where you can stand by holograms on a stage and dance with the four of them and take a video. So I've got a video of myself. And so actually I had to educate my older sister and my brother-in-law about who ABBA was, as they were children of the 60s and they'd start having babies by the 70s and stop listening to music. Isn't that the way it works? You know, when you start having children, you kind of lose track of the music world. Well, anyway, they were both familiar, though, with the movie Mamma Mia.
Of course. Which
features all ABBA songs. Every song in both movies, Mamma Mia, are all songs from ABBA. The group broke up in the early 1980s. However, just last year, I should say in 2021, I believe, they're all in their 70s now. They got back together during the pandemic to produce a whole new album, and it's done very well. In fact, their voice quality and their tight harmonies haven't lost anything in the past 4 decades, really. Altogether, ABBA has sold over 400 million albums worldwide.
Wow.
Extraordinarily popular around the world. The music critics hate them, but the public loves them. Well, now to our topic of strange beginnings. We want to talk about one of the group's members, that being of the brunette, Annefried Lyngstad. And like our previous story, there is a Nazi Germany connection. When Hitler came to power in 1933, he preached the doctrine of racial superiority of the Aryan Northern European people. He also encouraged a policy known as Lebensborn, or Spring of Life. This policy pushed Germans, particularly those who demonstrated physical characteristics such as being tall, with blonde hair and blue eyes, to produce as many children as possible to strengthen the Aryan race and support the fatherland. German soldiers stationed in Denmark and Norway were strongly encouraged to father children with women in these occupied countries. Annefried was born in the small town of Narvik, Norway, to a Norwegian mother whose name was Sinne Lyngstad, and a German sergeant named Alfred Haas on November 15, 1945, some 6 months after Germany had surrendered. Alfred already had a wife and family back in Germany, and he was shipped home at the end of the war, unaware that Sinne was pregnant with his daughter. Unfortunately, at the end of the war, many Norwegians mistreated Sinne and other women who had given birth to the children of German soldiers. They were branded as collaborators, and they and their children were often subject to abuse. To escape this treatment, Sinne's mother took her and Annefried across the border to Sweden, where Annefried was just 2 years old. Soon thereafter, unfortunately, Sinne died of a stroke, leaving Annefried to be raised by her grandmother. Her grandmother always encouraged Annefried to sing while doing chores around the house. When she was 13, Annefried entered her first singing competition at a Red Cross charity event, and she has never left show business since that time. In 1976, as ABBA was rising in popularity, a meeting was arranged with her father while the group was performing in Germany. While her father was open to her, she came away from the meeting somewhat cold and depressed. Today, she is still performing, but she also works to help those of her peers who had been ostracized in Norway and other locations because their fathers were German soldiers. Really interesting story about the beginning of one of the members of ABBA.
Yeah. Okay, this next story, let me just ask you, do you know what chewing gum and the Alamo have in common?
Well, I don't know that at all, no.
Chewing gum is actually quite ancient. There's evidence that northern Europeans were using birch tree bark as chewing gum as far back as 9,000 years.
Wow.
It's thought that in addition to just the enjoyment of chewing, it was also used to help alleviate toothaches. According to anthropologists, the ancient Mayans were known to chew a substance derived from the I don't know how to pronounce this, sapodilla.
Sapodilla, I think you're
Sapodilla.
right.
Yeah, probably since it's Latin or comes
Spanish.
from the Latin country. It's sapodilla tree in order to quench thirst or fight hunger. In the Mayan culture, it was only socially acceptable. This is interesting for just children and unwed women to chew in public. Whereas married women, widows, and men would chew it in private.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, okay.
This chewable substance was called chicle. Chicle.
Oh, you know what? I think it's chicle.
Chicle. You think?
Chicle, yeah.
Chicle.
I think it's chicle.
Maybe so.
That's still how you say gum in Spanish. I believe.
Chicle. Okay, well, there you go. Chicle. In North America, the indigenous people resorted to chewing on spruce tree resin. The first commercially produced gum was created in 1840 by John Curtis, who boiled the resin of spruce trees, cut it into strips, and he coated it with cornstarch to keep the strips from sticking together.
Good thinking, John.
A lot of the things that we eat are coated in cornstarch to keep it from, like gummy bears, for instance.
Yeah, I think I'm coated in cornstarch, to be honest with you. But
even though Curtis managed to open the first chewing gum factory in Maine, sales weren't that great because spruce resin just doesn't taste that good.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like what you'd pick up off the shelf first. Anyway.
Right. Well, and it became hard and brittle as it was being chewed. The gum we know and love today was invented in a roundabout way. An inventor in New York named Thomas Adams got his hands on some chicle through exiled Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bad word here in Texas. It's that Santa Anna.
Yeah.
From the Battle of the Alamo.
And he went to New York.
Well, Santa Anna, here's the thing.
Roundabout Ray. Yeah.
Santa Anna wanted help developing chicle into a substitute for rubber. He had some great plans to get rich by creating a competitive market for rubber using a substance that was just in an abundance in his homeland.
Right.
In turn, he would use his riches to return to power in Mexico.
Yeah, buy his way back in.
Great plan.
Yeah, but experiments by Adam to create a rubber substitute from chicle proved a failure, and the project was abandoned by old Santa Anna. Adams realized, though, that it might be possible to create a better chewing gum, and his experiments in that field paid off. He created a gum factory, and sales had reached clear across the U.S. by the 1880s. The main ingredient, chicle, was eventually replaced with synthetic ingredients by the mid-1900s. The brand name of Adams's gum? Chiclets.
Chiclets, yeah. Chiclets,
there you
and you can buy. You don't see them as much anymore, but you could even buy little packages when I was a kid with tiny little chiclets in them. They were multicolored.
Oh yeah,
I used to love those.
Oh yeah, I remember those. It's fun, and you used to be able to buy just little packs of just 2 pieces of gum.
Right.
In it.
Right.
And those were
tiny ones. I remember that.
Well, there was these were the regular size, but it just had
tiny
2
little
pieces.
Packages, yeah.
Yeah, tiny little packages, and they were popular to give out at Halloween. Well, my niece lost her 2 front teeth, and for a long, long time she spent as a child with no 2 front teeth, right? And my sister used to tease her, saying that she's going to buy her some chiclets to replace her teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually heard the word chiclets used as a slang word for teeth, too.
Yeah. And I got my information on chewing gum from history.com.
All right. Well, now we're thrillingly close to actual entertainment here, so let's see if this is going on.
Close.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Very close. Last year, we had one of my favorite episodes titled The Strangest Kidnapping You've Never Heard Of.
Right.
If you haven't heard that, please go back and listen to it. That was Season 3, Episode 12. In that episode, we talked much about the country of Korea had been occupied by Japan from 1910 until the end of World War II. Well, during this time, a fellow named, I'm going to say it wrong, I'm sorry, a fellow in Daegu, Korea, named Byung-chul Lee, that's Byung-Chull and then Lee, began a food export company. He was exporting dried fish and flour to China and other parts of East Asia. Like most other Koreans, he lost nearly everything during the Korean War. Afterwards, his company diversified into sugar refining, life insurance, and textile mills.
That's
diverse, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
that is diverse.
In the late 1960s, he expanded into a totally new area, electronics. In 1970, they produced their first black and white television. Later that decade, they also started producing washing machines, refrigerators, and microwaves, and they dabbled in petrochemicals. In the 1980s, they started producing color TVs, personal computers, VCRs, and tape recorders. And this is the decade that they also started exporting many of their products to North America.
Yep.
In the 90s, they began producing memory and hard drives for personal computers. By the early 2000s, they were producing mass quantities of cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Today, they are the world's largest manufacturer of mobile phones. And of course, I'm talking about Samsung. the company that started out selling dried fish in 1938.
From dried fish to cell
cell
phones. And your information came from the Business Insider.
The businessinsider.com. Businessinsider.com. Right. Now, this one, I'll tell you where it comes from at the end because I want you to try to guess what the company is first. Back in 1833, a London antique dealer named Marcus Samuel was looking for opportunities to expand his business. After noticing the recent popularity of utilizing seashells for interior design, he decided to import ornate-looking seashells from China. His business boomed, and he became wealthy. When he died in 1870, the business passed to his two sons, Marcus Jr. and Samuel. Yes, that's right. He named his second son Samuel. What's the local? George Foreman named all of his sons George Foreman. Remember that?
Yeah, and I've known people named Williams.
Yeah. Anyway. In the 1880s, they became interested in the oil exporting business. At the time, transporting oil was difficult as it was contained in barrels, which often leaked. The Samuel brothers hit upon the idea of having oil transported in bulk on specifically built steamships with reinforced cargo holds. They commissioned a fleet of these ships and soon increased their wealth, as they were now able to transport oil around the world much easier. One of their ships became the first tanker to transit the Suez Canal. In a nod to their father's seashell success, they named their business the Shell Transport and Trading Company. They also produced kerosene and bright red canisters with the name Shell emblazoned prominently on the front. In 1901,
we haven't given it away yet, right?
In 1901, I guess it did. When oil was discovered in Texas, the Samuel brothers won the rights to full distribution of the new Texas product right from here in the greater Cut-and-Shoot area. In 1907, the company merged with a smaller company called Royal Dutch, and so Royal Dutch Shell was formed on April 21st, 1907, and is today the third largest corporation in the world, and it all started with an antique shop. That information came from Shell.com, from their own website.
Black Gold, Texas tea.
That's right. Now, this is an interesting one also. Back in the 1830s, there was a candle maker named William and a soap maker named John. These two fellows became acquainted when they married a couple of Ohio girls who happened to be sisters. One evening at a family dinner, the two gentlemen began discussing the difficulty of finding the raw materials necessary for their products. As both candles and soap required animal fat, their father-in-law suggested that they pool their resources and start business together. Thus, in 1837, William Proctor and James Gamble launched in Cincinnati one of America's most stable and innovative companies, Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble sold both candles and soap to the Union Army during the Civil War. After the war, their sales of these items increased as they began to advertise. They introduced Ivory Soap in 1879, Crisco Shortening in 1911, and Joy, the first synthetic liquid detergent, in 1949. In 1932, Procter & Gamble sponsored a radio program called The Puddle Family. This was the first soap opera, so named because of the sponsor.
Because of the sponsor. That's right.
By the way, Procter & Gamble, if you're...
Now, it's interesting. I just looked it up. Procter & Gamble, do you remember the Satanic Panic?
Oh, yeah. Their symbol. People thought that was a satanic
That's right.
symbol.
Their symbol is really kind of cool. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, and it's an old one. They don't use it now. Right. Their logo was like it looks like the man in the moon, perhaps.
With
stars and everything.
Looked like there was a 6 around it somewhere, too, right?
I don't know about that.
Oh, maybe. But yeah, I remember that controversy back in the 80s.
Okay, so I'm reading from Atlas Obscura. It says, and this is quoting from it, if you were alive in 1982, you might remember a very special episode of Phil Donahue.
That's right.
His talk show. On that day, the president of Procter & Gamble went on the program and admitted that the company supported the Church of Satan and that its logo contained satanic symbols. It happened in 1985. Actually, others remember it airing in 1989. The truth is, it never happened.
Never happened. That's right.
But they've never had any connection to the Church of Satan or anything. They were just a victim of the Satanic Panic.
And it seems unfortunate because they've really been a very innovative company.
Right.
They've, well, let's see, Procter & Gamble has also been an innovator in the area of labor relations. In 1887, they were the first American company to issue a half holiday on Saturday. That was breathtaking at the time. That in that same year, they also began a profit-sharing program for their employees. By 1920, they were guaranteeing 4 weeks of paid vacation for their workers.
Oh, wow.
Other innovations,
very innovative.
Yeah, other innovations including a disability pension plan, a life insurance plan, and employee representation on the board of directors. In recent years, Procter & Gamble has been praised as half of its board of directors are now women.
Oh, wow.
Today, Procter & Gamble offers a wide range of products. I'll bet everybody listening has at least one Procter & Gamble product in your home. Here's just a few. Coffee, tea, baking mixes, prescriptions, medications, mouthwashes, toothbrushes and toothpaste, cleaning products, detergents, paper towels, toilet paper, snack foods, fragrances, deodorants, cosmetics, shaving supplies, hair color, baby diapers, baby wipes, shampoo, moisturizers, pet food, and other pet care items.
Holy cow.
They're all over the place. I mean, they're it's just, if you need it created, they've probably got it.
Right. They've been one of the most prominent advertisers as well as leading issues of free samples and discount coupons. All this from a candle maker and a soap maker who happen to marry sisters.
Interesting. Okay, I'm not even going to ask because I really don't want to know, but there is the age-old question of boxers or briefs. I say age-old just because it's been asked a lot, but both styles of underwear only date back to the 20th century. Before the 1920s, that question would have gotten you a blank stare because neither option existed yet.
Yes. We're always, yeah.
From Victorian times into the 1930s, men had mostly worn tight-fitting knee-length flannel drawers beneath their pants or the full-bodied union suit with that,
right.
with the flap in the back.
Long john, yeah.
Yep, long johns.
In 1925, Jacob Golomb, Gollomb, the founder of the sporting equipment company Everlast.
Oh, Everlast.
So,
boxing
yeah, they're
stuff,
still
yeah.
here.
Wow.
Tried to make something a little bit better for boxers to wear than the trunks held up by the leather belt that was currently being worn. I knew that they were called boxers, but I never made the connection or knew the connection, that they were actually
worn by boxers.
By boxers.
Yeah.
So Gollum replaced the leather belt with an elastic waistband. Boxers loved the new design
because it's lighter and less chafy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it did. Okay, but here's the thing: it didn't really catch on outside the boxing arena until after World War II.
Okay.
So briefs or tighty whities were invented in 1934. When Arthur Niebler, an executive and designer at the Wisconsin hosiery company Coopers Incorporated, received a postcard from a friend who was visiting the French Riviera. The postcard featured a man in a bikini-style bathing suit, so kind of like a Speedo, and inspired Niebler to create a legless undergarment with a Y-shaped fly. He named it the Jockey, and it sold extremely well compared to boxers, which men complained about having too little support.
I got you.
Briefs were the popular choice of undergarments for men. Okay. But then along came a company called Joe Boxer that really stirred things up. To quote straight from the Mental Floss article, because I got all this information from Mental Floss.
Right.
Quote.
I thought you might have read the back of an underwear package. I'm not sure.
Fruit of the Loom.
Okay, so listen to this. Quote, one of the main beneficiaries of this new obsession with snappy underwear was Joe Boxer, which started making skivvies in 1984 when it filled an order for Macy's that included a design with a Velcro attached removable raccoon tail.
Okay.
Okay. Joe Boxer really jumped into the spotlight in 1985. Phil's just over here. What? They jumped in the spotlight in 1985, though, when it made boxers printed in the image of $100 bills.
Okay.
The Secret Service decided that these duds violated forgery laws. and confiscated 1,000 pairs of the offending underwear.
Hey, you know, G-men all over the country were wearing those.
But here's the thing.
Several
okay?
that came in and confiscated them too.
We talk about the flexibility and innovation of companies. Instead, and I'm still quoting from Mental Floss, instead of simply hiring lawyers, Joe Boxer turned the seizure into a lighthearted news event.
Right.
And the image of boxers as a playful alternative to stolid briefs.
Right.
So the adage of any publicity, even negative publicity, is good publicity. It really worked in this case, and the sale of boxers took off to rival that of the tidy whities.
Right.
And one last note on men's underwear, and this is so interesting. In 2008, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan explained that the sale of men's underwear could be used to gauge the economic health of the nation.
Okay.
Greenspan reasoned that most men have a drawer full of fairly ratty underwear that they'll wear until the elastic is dead or the boxers are riddled with holes. Since underwear are not seen by their coworkers or friends, men generally feel that replacing their underwear is done more out of luxury than necessity.
Yeah, I can see that.
As such, when men start fearing the economy is in a downturn and need to place to save a little cash, they simply make do with what they have, regardless of how worn out it is, and sales of men's underwear plummet. The logical argument was proven to be true when in 2008 the nation was plunged into a recession and men's underwear sales fell 12% that year. So
That's
there you
really
have
interesting.
it.
Wow.
Very good. Those are great stories about strange beginnings, I think.
And now it's time, boys and girls, for the Trivia Challenge.
All right, Trivia Challenge. Woo. You know how this works. Like and follow our Facebook page at Remnant Stew Podcast. Like and share this episode post. Put your answer to the Trivia Challenge question in the comments on that post. The first person to do all that will be the winner. Yay! Yay! And will be mentioned in an upcoming episode of Remnant Stew. We are also opening our Trivia Challenge up to school kids. Pay attention back there. If your classroom listens to Remnant Stew and they want to answer this trivia question, then send us an email with their answer to staycurious@remnantstew.com. If your class wins, we'll send a cool little care package to the class. So, Leah, what is our question for today?
Well, this is thanks to Harbin. This product was called, quote, 100-mile-per-hour tape. What is it called now? Who invented it and why?
Oh, okay.
100-mile-an-hour tape.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, very good.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Remnant Stew Podcast. You can also send us an email to say hi or suggest a topic for a future episode at staycurious@remnantstew.com. We love to hear from you.
Remnant Stew is a part of Rook and Raven Ventures and is created by me, Leah Lamp. Dr. Judy Meeker and I research, write, and host each episode along with commentary by our audio producer, Philip Sinquefield. Theme music is by Kevin MacLeod with voiceover by Morgan Hughes. Special thanks goes out to Judy Meeker and Harbin Gould.
Before you go, please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head on over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love reading those reviews. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, your family, the Marriott family if you run into them. And until next time, it's New Year's. How about making this a New Year's resolution? Choose to be kind. And always stay curious.